It is probably inappropriate for me to start this off with a peace greeting, so I'll refrain this time, but I'm not addressing hostile parties. I am going to say something about this gender war because it's going to apply to many of us. Gentlemen, when BGS first said that the gender war is over, I knew he wouldn't make it up. I also couldn't believe that it would actually be over, so I just figured that it looks like it's over and they're still going to start up again. And from the feedback I got from many of you, it appears that it's over in some places and not in others, which is very logical. I must have appeared to BGS like I was a war hawk that just wanted to continue fighting the war. I didn't want there to ever be a gender war in the first place. I don't necessarily want to continue fighting the gender war, but I realize that I'm not capable of believing that it's over. And this is trauma. Veterans of combat can go into a mode in which they're back in combat. They mentally believe that they're back in combat. That's PTSD. It's a part of him that never fully accepts that the combat is over so they can completely drop their guard because, well, they lived where they could not drop their guard. Therefore, they have a permanent trauma. I don't think I've got that combat PTSD. I'm not saying that, but I do realize that there's some permanent effects on me from the gender war. We heterosexual men probably will go through it the most because we never had an interest in a gender war, and we don't fully understand. We can't even understand why straight women would be interested in fighting one against us. We don't get it. Doesn't make sense to even have that kind of interest. What do you gain from that if you're straight? And the thing is, you could not have enlisted men to fight a gender war against women. If they're straight, you can enlist straight women to fight against men in a gender war. I could have undone more of what was done to me had I lived with my second wife. We could not live together, and it was not her fault, and it was not mine. It was just the government's. By the time I married and lived with my current wife, I was past 40 and the damage was done. I wasn't going to change. I look at my mindset now, and also by the time I married my current wife, I already knew that some things were permanent, and I was in the black manosphere. And I realized that though I was generally speaking out of the woods, the bulk of you were not. I first saw the gender war as something affecting my people before I even called it a gender war, before I even thought of it in those terms. I thought of it as affecting my ethnicity. And even later on, I had to realize that my ethnicity was black men. It's not Western black women. It does not include Western black women. And Western black women are the ones pushing for a redefinition of who's black and who's not. They're pushing for this. And so if you are an admixed black woman and you get with a white guy, you're a black woman because they can claim your victory. But if you're an admixed black woman and then you get with a black man, then he's a sellout for marrying you, especially if you're also cute. Because you ain't really black. And also, you know, for men, if you want to know what they do to black admixed men or MLS men, mixed or light-skinned men, it doesn't make much sense because they will say, well, you don't get to claim you're black because of how you've been treated, because that's defining us by our mistreatment. then they turn around and they define themselves by mistreatment. And if you're a black admixed man, MLS, and you identify yourself as black, then they say that you're not. But if there's ever a time that it becomes inconvenient to be black, they expect you to identify yourself as black. So they aren't going to accept you enjoying being black at any time. You have to suffer from it. Not only that, but you don't even get to go back and forth between the suffering and the enjoyment. You must always suffer from it. So that means that when it's time to celebrate being black, you stand at the sidelines and guard the perimeter. And then when it's time to suffer for it, you jump in there and suffer. That's what they mean. It's like you owe a debt for the melanin count you don't have. If you are unmixed, but you're not stereotypical, they do similar things. And they've gotten worse about this over the decades, and I've watched it happen. I've watched it, and I've watched it as it is going on. And I thought that I was just learning new stuff. Come to find out, not only was I learning new things over the years, but that also there were things that actually were new. I wasn't only learning new information to me, I was learning things that actually were new themselves, or degrees that were new. I told y'all what I learned in 2001 and didn't really think much about it again until 2017 when my memory got jarred. Now I can't forget it. And that largely is because it came with gaslighting, blaming me. You see, you can look at me when I was younger and you could say, well, you goofed off and turned them off and said, well, as a young guy, I did that about as much as any other man did from lack of knowledge. But as I got older, I was not willing to be a guy with bad game that would run women off, even accidentally. I wasn't willing to be that. So then what would explain systemic patterns of mistreatment, misjudgment, and the worst assumptions? Well, what that was real simple. That was, simply put, they were looking for reasons. And that's not something that is done only to me. They may have been doing that a lot when I was growing up. But that's not done only to me. They're looking for reasons to mistreat you. They're looking for reasons to mistreat the one next to you. They're looking for reasons to mistreat the one that sent you the link to this. They're looking for reasons to mistreat the ones to whom you sent the link to this particular upload. They look for reasons to mistreat Passport OG. He doesn't have to earn it. He doesn't have to be corny and a goofball. They look for reasons to mistreat Austin when they like him. They look for reasons to do it. And now what's happening is that the sisters on the continent have begun to do the same thing. You got a woman, continental woman. She sounds like she's from the eastern part of the continent when she speaks to me. I don't remember her name. Her viewers are far more than her subscribers because she's always going in on Austin Holloman. Always. And what she does is talk about him the way a Western sister from the wilderness of North America would talk about most of us. He's controlling. He's autistic. He's a freak. He's abnormal. Look at him cut her steak for her. You know, there are women that get mad if you don't. There are women that get mad if you do. But they don't tell you which one they are. You cut a steak, she's mad. You don't, she's mad. And she's not going to tell you which one you're supposed to do beforehand. She's just going to get mad when you don't figure it out. That is the Western black woman, the Western white woman, and now increasingly so, the continental sister from the homeland. And the more like models they look, the worse their attitudes get. You're sitting up looking and saying, why do you behave this way? And they're sitting up and telling you that you're the one that's tripping. So you see, the gender war to a certain extent might be over. Now, I think that the legal war is not, because we don't have a change in the legal environment yet. And truth be told, the laws only disfavor the responsible breadwinner. The laws don't disfavor a gender in the way that they're written. Now, they work in together in conjunction with female hypergamy to then make things difficult for the man. But you know what? One of the things that you could say as Western men is, because of the way the laws are, we have to offset nature. So we have to go against nature to offset the laws. So if you want us to marry, you make more than we men do. You're better than us anyway. So go ahead and make more money than we do. And then we can discuss marriage. Because in the event that you can't stay, guess what? We may not take you to court for the money. We may not ask for it. We may not put that claim in. We may let you off the hook in a divorce or not. But you will not let us off the hook in a divorce if we're making the money. We provide, we work, you get upset, you get tired, you get bored, you leave, you ask for half. And if the law of the state will give it to you, you will not let us off the hook for it, because you'll do anything for money but work hard. So that war is not yet over. And one other war that is not over is the reproductive war. You can tell that in terms of what they say when they disqualify you. But the thing is, they're looking for reasons to disqualify you. It's not really just about them having standards and preferences. It is a fact that they're looking to still disqualify you when you meet standards and preferences, when you match them. They still look for reasons to disqualify you. And they continue doing this until they get to a guy that is exactly what a slave master would have wanted to purchase off of the auction block back in the day. Antebellum. And what is that? Strong of body, but weak of mind. Dominant over other black men, but accepting the authority of the man. And even then, you accept the authority of the man, they still don't want you. You let him, they'll sit up and talk about what you let that cracker do to you. And if you turn around and fought back, she'd be the one to defend that cracker. And this is why I've been saying that even when you find that the gender war is generally over where you live, you can't go back to the table and have these discussions with them. While they're having these discussions with you, or while they're sitting at the table waiting on you, their ambassadors are over there on the continent or in chat rooms with women on the continent, recruiting them so that when you land back home, since it makes perfect sense we would want to go back home anyway, the same type of feminism is waiting. Not just feminism, but misandry specifically. It is there, and it is looking at you, and it is waiting, and it won't go the F away. They want to take and not give. As a matter of fact, they demand it. And while they're now realizing they got to give to get in the States, they are still trying to make sure that you remain at their mercy by training other women that look like them. While they claim that that's exactly what you don't like, that they're trying to teach and trick other women that look like them to do exactly what they did to drive you the uck away. That propaganda war is not yet over. I want it to be. It's just not. And I want you to understand that that's not your fault, black man. But that's the war that does not end. It's ongoing. It's today. It's tomorrow. It's going to be the next day. They are still plotting and planning, and they're not plotting and planning to get you so they can spoil you because they love you. They're plotting and planning to get what you can do and get your resources from you. And if they can get the resources and ditch you, they'll do it. They're plotting and planning for the most part to get as much as possible out of you in exchange for no sex and no cooperation and no romance and no validation either. and no other resource to make up for that. Neither labor, nor love, nor money. Neither ass nor assets. They're looking to trade in none of these things to get as much out of you except your junk and your Johnson as possible. And that's so that they can go and take just the genes of the few guys they all want. Don't let them tell you it's biology. Biology does not lead species to wind up all half siblings. That's not what biology leads species to do. And that's exactly what they're going for. And now the stats are bearing out that this is a problem even in white America. You see, in 4 years, it got worse. 2019, it was about what? 51%, I think, of men that were 30 and above that were just single and not dating and not screwing. In 2022, I think it went up to 63%. The percentage did not rise for women, and it was somewhere in the 30s, low 30s, and it did not rise for women. Just single, not dating, not screwing, just single. So what does that tell you? That is proof right there. You got men admitting to not getting none. Above or below the belt, you got men admitting to this. This is a confession in the West. And you got women admitting that they are. So this tells you got a few guys doing all the dating, all the smashing. And you are being blamed for what these women don't get out of life. You, the normal guy that's single, are being blamed for what these women are not getting out of the other men that they're actually dating and smashing and screwing. Now, I know that the Wyatts are doing this too, but I don't feel a guck. That's their problem. I'm not always happy about it and I understand their men's resistance, but I don't necessarily respect their men's right to resist if they don't respect our right to resist racially, their men attempting to do the same thing. Take and not give. Gaslight, lie, deceive. Recruit others into the same mode of thinking, which is what they have done. See, they don't respect your right to resist these things while they do it, and then their bitch does it to them, and they all of a sudden want to resist. That's why I understand that right. I just don't respect it. I don't even call it a right. I don't think they're right for doing it. I don't think they're right for resisting unless they accept that we're also right for resisting these things done by them to us. But since many of them won't, I don't see this as a right. I don't recognize everybody's right to self-defense in every situation. Like Israel's, I don't recognize them as having some right to self-defense. They need to be enslaved. They know what the hell they did. But that's another topic for another day. It's not going to happen anyway. I'm just talking about what's just and fair, not what's legal and what's on the way. By the way, if this video ever is taken down, you can look for it on Odyssey. I want to tell you that, certain wars are not over. And even if where they're not fighting the gender war anymore, they're still active in trying to recruit sistren from the continent itself to fight that gender war, then the way I see it, they're trying to throw those continental sisters under the bus. Instead of saying, sorry, we were just wrong and you are valuable. And we mean it actually acting like we're valuable, by submitting and giving us credit where it's due. That sort of thing. The stuff they would do for Zaddy. Instead of doing these things and not telling the sisters from the continent to do this, instead, they want to just stop doing it without saying sorry and then turn around and tell other groups of other nationalities of black women to do the same thing while they stop. so that they can shift the tide and have us trying to get with them. Oh, you so much better than that Ghanaian woman I dated. That's what they're looking for. No, shuck that fit. You had attitude when you were young with a big old booty and you didn't have a big old gut to go with it. You had an attitude problem. And you didn't lose that damn attitude until not only you got bigger, but had a bunch of other men's kids and wrinkles and men stopped paying attention to you. And you saw you were losing the younger competition. Then you changed your attitude. That means you didn't really change your attitude. Oh, and here's the main other thing, too. When it comes down to what they've done to you, gentlemen, because, see, there's no therapy for this. It may exist on paper, but you can't go get therapy. I can't. You can't ask for therapy. They will lynch you. That's why that former therapist wound up doing what she did. And it was sisters that turned her in. Made her lose a license. Now she got to go on OnlyFans. Who are they still blaming? Us, like we did it. But I'm going to tell you guys, though, sad as it is, I wanted to tell you that when it comes down to you being a wounded bird because of what others have done to you, one of the ways you can tell that it's not over is that they don't sit and they don't come along and say, well, let me be the one that doesn't do this. And Melanie King said this. They don't come along and say, well, let me be the one that doesn't do this to him. Instead, they come along and they say, well, whatever somebody else did, the worst that any other woman did before me, I'm going to do. And I damn sure better get away with it. You were rightly insulted when a woman tells you no where she told other men yes. I'm not saying you should be trying to fornicate, but when they heard yes and you hear no, you have a right to be insulted. And if you were chaste and you weren't trying to smash and she said no and told others yes, you should be doubly insulted. Because if you were chaste, you ain't trying to smash. That means she had to say no out the blue just for an ego trip because, they just got to talk down to you. Meanwhile, what they're doing is sitting up and saying that just like they don't have the right to just all of a sudden become more chaste, they want to come along and say that you don't have the right to be treated any better than the worst treatment you ever got in your past. Even if you handled that treatment the right way by leaving that broad and you didn't tolerate it, what they're looking and saying is, but she did it to you and I found out about it, so you're going to take this off me too. They never say, let me be the one that didn't do this. That doesn't go through their mind. They are looking for reasons to mistreat you when they give you a shot. That war also is not over. So you got some legal and propaganda and reproductive battles that are still not over. This is why I said to you, don't go back to the table when they're sitting down at it. While they're at the table, waiting on you to show up for discussion, remember that their ambassadors are already either in a chat room with someone across the ocean or they're across the Atlantic from you on our home continent spreading the same damn ideas, not just feminism, but misandry to women from back home. That is what they are doing when they're sitting up and saying to you, come back to the table. We love you, black man. We need you, black man. Why is it that they can't say this when they're 18? They can't even say it when they're in their 20s. What nice looking black woman in even her early 30s has said something like this publicly? And yes, I say nice looking. Just if there are men that think she's nice looking and she's in shape, who says that? They don't. They will not. How old did Taraji P. Henson have to get before she said it? How old did Monique have to get? And she's married before she said it. What do they have to lose? If they can't do these things, if they cannot validate your ego and what you want when they are young and attractive and at their best, that may not constitute war by itself, but it might as well, because that ego, it's out there. And they'll treat you like an enemy if you didn't do the same thing for them when you're at your richest or your tallest. So that's what is not over. I hope that what I've said helps again. Thank you all for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, black heterosexual, non-select male power just because they don't like it. Black patriarchy until extinction of judgment day. Thank you for flying with us here on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.